The Knicks desperately need to get themselves a high quality point guard. The Knicks have a lot of problems, which has contributed to them getting off to such a bad start, but not having good point guard play pretty much all year has definitely played a huge role in them being so bad. The Knicks were hoping that they were getting an upgrade when they signed Kemba Walker, but he's been a huge disappointment. He's not as athletic as he used to be, and we could tell because he's not getting to the rim anymore, or he's not getting to the rim like he used to anymore. He doesn't finish as well anymore, and he's a complete defensive liability. Now, Derrick Rose is still a good backup quality point guard, but he's been out for the past month with that ankle injury, and he's not supposed to be back till All-Star break. And outside of those two, the Knicks don't have any good options at point guard. Now, Thibodeau did try playing Alec Burks at point when he took him out the lineup, but that experiment didn't work because point guard isn't even Alec Burks' natural position. He's a two guard. Now, Miles McBride did have one good game where he had 15 points and 9 assists against the Rockets, but he doesn't look like he's ready for starter minutes. Outside of that game, he fell off, and it looks like he pretty much played himself out of the rotation. And Immanuel Quickley, he's really regressed this year. In fact, Immanuel Quickley's regression has probably gone completely under the radar. He's only shooting about 38% from the field, and again, he's really more of a two guard or a combo guard than a natural point guard. And when you look at the Knicks, even as bad as they are, this is still a pretty talented team. Mitchell Robinson is starting to really play well. RJ Barrett is starting to break out. He's been averaging 20 over his past 21 or 22 or so games. And if the Knicks had themselves a high quality point guard that could break down the defense in the half court and create open shots for his teammates, I think this is a Knicks team that could probably be in the playoffs. Not saying that they would be as good as they were last year in the tough East, but they could probably at least be a 7th or 8th seed if they had a high quality player at the 1. So in this video, I wanted to talk about 3 potential options for the Knicks at point guard that maybe they can get at the trade deadline, or maybe they can get sometime in the offseason. Now, one name that's been brought up recently for the Knicks is DeAron Fox. Now, I'm not as high on Fox as other fans are, but I do think that he could be a massive help, and I do think that he could fill a lot of holes that the Knicks have. For starters, his ability to put pressure on the rim at an elite level is something that the Knicks could definitely use. Fox is probably the most athletic point guard in the league between his speed and between his insane vertical at the rim. You know, he gets to the rim with the best of them. And he could be that point guard that the Knicks need that can break down the defense in the half court and score and create scoring opportunities for his teammates. You know, he could drive to the basket, set up Mitchell Robinson for dunks, set him up for alley-oops, and he could get guys like Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier open shots. So he would be a huge help in terms of his scoring and his playmaking. The downside with Fox is that he's a bad defender and he's a horrible three-point shooter. The Sacramento Kings are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They rank about 29th in defensive rating, and they've been one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And the thing with Fox, he has the physical tools to be a good defender. Again, he's super athletic. He's got nice size. He's about 6'3". He should at least be a decent defender. So for him to be so bad on defense says that he's just not trying on that end. And then, of course, you have his three-point shooting. He only shoots about 24% from 3, so he would hurt the Knicks' spacing. On the positive, he is only 24 years old, so if the Knicks were to add him, he could be their long-term point guard of the future. And while he is pretty bad on defense, I would be interested to see what could happen if he brought him under Thibodeau and to see if Thibodeau's defensive coaching could help him to improve on that end. So Fox is a good player. He's not an all-star. He's not an elite, but the Knicks could do a lot worse with him. Now, up to this point, it's unclear if he really is attainable. There's been some rumors that the Kings are willing to trade Fox. There's also been some rumors that the Kings want to hold on to Fox and build around him. We're really not going to find out until around the trade deadline. But if the Knicks could do a Julius Randle for Fox swap, that would definitely be a nice move, but I'm not really sure if that's something that's seriously on the table or if that's just rumors. Now, another potential option for the Knicks at point guard is Jalen Brunson. That's a name that also has been brought up quite a lot over these past few weeks. Now, Jalen Brunson, he plays for the Dallas Mavericks, and I think he's probably one of the most underrated players in the league. He's a small point guard. He's only about 6'1", but he has a lot of things that he does really well. He's a really skilled, crafty ball handler. He gets to the rim at will. He's a really good finisher. He can play off the ball because he can shoot, and he's also a really good playmaker. If you look at his numbers are modest, but that's because he plays next to Luka Doncic, who's one of the most ball-dominant players in the league. But if you actually look at Jalen Brunson's numbers without Luka, he averages about 20 points and 8 assists per game. So he's sneakily one of the better point guards in the league. And he's also only 25 years old, so if the Knicks were to acquire Brunson, they potentially have their long-term point guard for maybe the next 6 or 7 years. But it's pretty unlikely that the Mavericks would trade Brunson by the trade deadline. Now, he is set to become an unrestricted free agent, so if the Mavs hold on to him, they risk losing him for nothing. But the Mavericks are a team that's trying to compete in the Western Conference. So unless they get themselves a trade offer that really blows them away, I don't think that they're trading Brunson by the trade deadline. But the Knicks could potentially get Jalen Brunson in free agency. Now, there are some rumors that Jalen Brunson could be interested to coming to the Knicks. I'm not 100% sure if they're true or not. He does have connections. His dad, Rick Brunson, did play for the Knicks back in the 90s. His dad, Rick Brunson, is also connected to Leon Rose because he was his agent at one point. So who knows? But if the Knicks could get Jalen Brunson in the offseason, that would be a nice pickup. It would have to be a sign and trade because the Knicks are over the cap because of the Julius Randle contract and the Evan Fournier contract. But if they could put themselves a package in this offseason, I don't know whether it's maybe Evan Fournier and they attach an asset like maybe they give Dallas their 2023 first round pick back, or they give Emmanuel Quickly. I think that would be a good addition. So Jalen Brunson, that would be a really nice pickup. I think if you added him to this current team, then you're looking at a Knicks team that's potentially in the playoffs. Now, lastly, we have Dejounte Murray of the San Antonio Spurs, who's another name that's been brought up. And this might be my favorite option of the three main point guards that we're going to talk about. Dejounte Murray is a big point guard. He's about 6'5", and he really excels on both ends of the floor. On defense, because of his size, his length, athleticism, he's one of the best defensive guards in the league. In fact, he was all defensive team back in 2018. And on the offensive end, he's really developed into one of the best offensive guards as well. He's a good scorer, he's a good slasher, and he's a really great playmaker. On the year, I think he's averaging about 19 points and 8 assists per game. So he's really good. Now, a lot of people question whether Dejounte Murray would be available, because you would think for a rebuilding San Antonio Spurs team, why would they trade him? So while at face value, it doesn't really make sense for them to trade him, you also have to consider that Dejounte Murray turns 26 years old this season. So while he's still young, he's also not that young, and he might be a little bit too old to truly be the centerpiece of a rebuild. So if you're the Spurs and you're ready to start yourself a fresh rebuild, it might make sense to trade Dejounte Murray if you can get yourself a good offer. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Brian Windhorst that reported not too long ago that Dejounte Murray could be available in the offseason. So if the Knicks could get Dejounte Murray, a really nice, still young point guard that excels on both ends of the floor, if you add him to what the Knicks currently have, again, I think you're looking at a Knicks team that's potentially in the playoffs, and you're also looking at the Knicks team that would really have himself a nice young core between Dejounte Murray, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and the other young guys on this team. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the potential for the Knicks to draft a point guard. The Knicks are projected right now to select anywhere at the 11th or 12th range, and there are going to be some good point guards available, whether you're looking at Ty Washington out of Kentucky or Jaden Ivey. But I don't think that a first-year player, a first-year point guard, is going to come here day one and make the Knicks significantly better. The point guard position is probably the hardest position for prospects to adjust to. If it was up to me, I would draft the point guard as insurance, but I'm also going to look to get one of these point guards that I talked about in the video in the offseason, whether that's Jalen Brunson from the Mavericks or Dejounte Murray from the Spurs. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. What do you think the Knicks need to do to get themselves a high-quality point guard and get themselves their point guard of the future? If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it, subscribe, and check out some of my other content. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and have a great rest of your day.